Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another field strip video. And in today's field strip we're going to be taking apart for cleaning and maintenance the HK MR27 rifle. Now this is going to be the same procedure for the MR556 and the MR223, as well as the Brownells BRN-4 and any derivative or clone of the HK416. I know in appearance this gun looks like a typical AR-15 style rifle. However, there are a few differences, and I want to highlight those when I take this gun apart. So let's start, of course, by dropping the magazine, ensuring that there is no ammunition in it. Looks like we are good. We will then flip the rifle over to the other side and, of course, safety check it, visually inspect that chamber, make sure we are empty. Now we will put the safety selector switch on safe. The first thing I'm going to do before taking this rifle apart is take off the accessories. This MR27 was part of the deployment kit package. So we have a Trijicon ACOG and a Harris bipod on this with LaRue tactical mounts. And I don't want to damage them as I take this gun apart. So the LaRue tactical mounts simply have a lever that will come out, and there's a little lock that you push back or can pull back, and that will allow you to lift up on those levers. And then you can take the ACOG off, and we can do the same thing with the bipod in the front. And the bipod is off as well now. So now we're going to go to the takedown pins. Now these takedown pins look very much like a typical AR-15 that you can simply push through. However, on this gun you cannot. These pins, which are also captive like an M16 or AR-15, have a ball detent inside of them that are spring-loaded. And in order to take these down, you will need a small punch. And you have to push down on the center of these pins. As I said, they are spring-loaded. And then when that detent is no longer under pressure, you can push them all the way through. And it's important to note this because when you put this back together, you're going to need to depress these detents again to push the pins back through. So let's pull those pins all the way out, and now we can separate the lower and the upper receiver. And there's the lower, and we're pretty much done with that. So we can set that aside. Now we're going to go to the upper receiver. We can take out the charging handle, and this is typical of most AR-15 rifles. Pull that back, pull out the bolt carrier group. Now that obviously looks like a little bit different than what you're used to seeing on an M16 or AR-15. Take out the charging handle as well. Now we want to take apart the short stroke piston system. In order to do that, we have to take off the handguard. And so we're going to need to back out this screw right here. Sometimes you can do this with your fingers. It is knurled, but if you can't get it off and you don't want to damage it, you simply can take a screwdriver, and I'll take a little rag here so I don't mar it. It shouldn't be on there with much pressure at all. And if I can just start it like that, I can then unscrew it with just my fingers. This screw is captive, so we can then pull it out, and now you can pull off the handguard. And of course set that aside. And now you can see the short stroke gas piston system. You can also see how thick this barrel is. And this is one of the complaints of the MR556 and the M27. The barrel profile is simply just way too big. It's not like an HK416. Now, to get this short stroke gas piston system out, all you have to do is grab it from right about here, pull it back, pull that out of the gas block, then carefully take the pressure off the spring and pull out the whole piston system. Then you have this gas plug or piston, and you can pull that out as well. And that is the upper receiver completely field stripped. Now let's take a look at this bolt really fast. And you'll notice we do have a pin here in the typical place you would find a cotter pin on a regular bolt carrier group, but you have nothing on this side to pull it out, so you have to push it through on this side. And when that comes out, it is also captive. And now we can get the firing pin out in pretty much the traditional way. And you might need to lift up on this little lever right here to get that out. And this firing pin is spring-loaded, so you can take the spring off the firing pin. And then just like an AR-15, you can now rotate the cam pin. You can pull that out, pull out the bolt, and that bolt definitely looks different. And then you can take either the firing pin or another small punch, and you can depress the extractor, and you can pull out the extractor pin and take off the extractor. And that is how you field strip for cleaning and maintenance the HK MR27, MR556, MR223, or Brownells BRN-4. So it's a little bit different, a little bit more complicated than your standard AR-15. So let me go ahead and wipe this down, and let's put this back together. So we have this rifle all cleaned up and ready to go back together, and we're going to start with the bolt because it has most of the small parts that we don't want to lose. We're going to grab the extractor. We're going to make sure the extractor spring is installed, and then we can install that into the bolt. And then we can compress the extractor, and we should be able to install the extractor pin. Just got to get it lined up, and then once it's lined up, it should go all the way in. Then we can take our bolt and install it into the bolt carrier, making sure the extractor is facing the right direction. Then we can install the cam pin and pull the bolt forward. Then we can get our firing pin and firing pin spring and install that through the rear of the carrier. Then you push it forward and then have to lift up on this lever, which will allow you to fully install the firing pin. Then you can push through the firing pin retaining pin, and then your bolt carrier should be back together, and you know it's right if you can push the bolt back and you let it go, the spring will push it back forward. And that's the completely reassembled bolt carrier. Now we're going to go to the upper receiver and the gas piston system. We're going to start here with the piston itself and the plug that goes into the gas block. We will then take the op rod, and the op rod has a flat surface on the rear portion here, which will correspond to going up against the barrel nut. We'll install the rod into the receiver first, then we can compress the spring and push the rod into the piston, and that is all it takes to put that back together. We will now grab the rail, and you don't have to worry about clocking the rail because it has a little nub here on the rear which will correspond to a little cutout here on the upper, and as long as those two parts go together, the rail is aligned. Pull that all the way back, make sure those two parts go together. Then you just have to find where the slot is for that screw, push it through, and then you can hand tighten it. And then you want to take that screwdriver and that rag from earlier, and you just want to tighten that down just a little bit to make sure it will not back out. Then we will take our charging handle and install it through the rear of the upper. And then we'll take our bolt and bolt carrier, install that through the rear as well, push that forward, and now the upper receiver is completely assembled. Now we're going to grab our lower receiver, and this is something that's a little bit different, as I mentioned, than your standard AR-15 or M16. We will put the lower and the upper together, making sure the pins will line up. You might have to compress the bolt a little bit because it is under that spring tension. Then you can close everything up, and now you got to grab that punch, and you have to put that punch back through the takedown pins to depress that ball detent, and then you can push the pins through the receivers if everything is lined up. And I think I got it right here. And this, as I said, can be a little bit tricky. Make sure everything's lined up. And then we got it. So that's the front pin. And then we can go to the rear. And one of my complaints about this design is if you needed to take this apart in the field, and if you don't have a punch, that's going to be a little bit difficult. I think the standard AR-15 or M16 way is better than what HK came up with. So now we can put these accessories back on the gun. We'll start with the bipod. It goes in the front. And then we can simply close the QD lever. Then we can go to the optic, and we can do exactly the same thing. And just make sure everything is aligned on the rail. Pull those levers back, and then we can lock both of those into place. Then we can grab our magazine and insert it, and then we can function test the rifle, take it off safe, trigger works, and there you go. That is how you field strip an HK MR27, MR556, MR223, an HK416, or a Brownells BRN-4, and any clone of any of those rifles. So I hope this video helps highlight some of the differences between this and a standard AR-15, and I hope this video helps somebody in the future. So let me know if you have any questions, and as always, thanks for watching.